So I'm Catherine McLean, founder and CEO of Dylan Green. And today I have with me Kate Henningsen, co-founder and COO of Arcadia. Welcome.
Thanks, Catherine. It's awesome to be here. Great to see you as always.
Another amazing DC, DMV area person in my life. So many good people here.
Well, and like we're back together now, like we're seeing each other in person. We're able to, it just feels like connection and serendipity is back in our lives, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first, congrats on raising $200 million to invest in broadening the coverage of your energy data platform, Arc. Tell us a little bit about your current role and provide an overview of Arcadia's work and what makes the offerings unique.
Well, thank you. So yes, $200 million. It's a good thing to, go to work and do on a daily basis. So, so Arcadia is a digital energy platform. And so we've been around for 7 years and we're in the energy space, but we're tackling the energy problems a little bit differently with software rather than hardware. So we have created a universal data connection to about 10,000 different utilities and around the world. And why that's important and is exciting is because, as you and all your viewers know, there's an energy transition going on, and really that the heart and soul of the energy transition, we think, is going to be decentralization, the customer taking more of a role. And in the same way, we've seen sectors modernize and digitize across, healthcare, fintech, insurance. That change is coming to energy, and it's really going to be the data that's the center of that. So that's where Arcadia is playing, is unleashing and unsiloing energy data so that consumers, innovative companies, residential folks can start to use that data to make energy choices, to have innovation. So, and my role is co-founder and COO. So that is both a strategy, vision, how do we do the things that I just laid out and really execute against that? And then I run sort of our operations function, our strategy function. So really running the gamut from day to day, let's make sure this thing works, to how do we make our next, big idea, next $100 million? How do we deliver on the promise? So it's fun. It's fun.
I think I just realized that you're probably the first person I've ever interviewed where I'm a customer.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
When I met Kieran, when I first moved back to DC, like about 3 years ago, he convinced me to be a customer.
That's great. I love that.
And I've been using you ever since.
That's great.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because for people that don't know, like Virginia obviously is a regulated state. So you guys pay Dominion Power and then charge me a little kind of fee on top of my bill to invest in clean energy projects.
Yeah, exactly. So we started really as this direct to consumer, let's give everybody in all 50 states access to clean energy. Yeah. Along the way, we've continued that. And our biggest direct to consumer product now is our community solar business, which manage over a gigawatt of community solar.
Wow.
Which is 300,000 people now using that product. And so, we still have a direct to consumer arm, but then to run that business, we basically created this data platform. And that's really where we see the market pull coming, is in leaning in and investing in that. So there's lots of areas of growth, which is great. Yeah.
I really want to get into your background, because your background is really interesting. As a recruiter, I'm always really interested in like people's career journeys and like how they wind up where they are in life. So you had your undergrad was in history, then you did philosophy, a master's in philosophy, and then got a law degree.
Yeah. did a lot of school.
Yeah, a lot of school. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how you made your way into clean energy and how the transition went for you?
Yeah. So I did, I actually do tell people often that the liberal arts background, for me at least, informs how I operate on a daily basis. So I didn't have a finance background, didn't have a business background. I really think of sort of history, philosophy, and law is how, historically we've organized people, problems. Sort of philosophy is how we should do it. And then law is sort of the rules around how we organize. And you'd be surprised at how those lessons carry into business, forming, business is collaboration. It's making people do things together. So actually, like those learnings I use every day. But I think what was really sort of the transition for me was I was a lawyer, a corporate litigator for 5 years after that. And, energy is a regulated industry primarily. And so when I wanted to switch from sort of big corporate litigation into something more creative, into something more impactful and purposeful, I really looked at startups in the regulated field, which is healthcare and energy.
Right.
And I'm so lucky that, energy is where I found myself. And it's really proven to be true that I think a lot of people shy away from innovation in regulated spaces because they're scared of, laws, policies, administrative rulings. But I think there's so much opportunity in those spaces to bring new insights, creativity. One of the things that Kieran and I talk about a lot is we don't really have direct competitors, which is odd for such a large market opportunity to not have. You can pick 4 people to deliver your meal or to pick up your dry clean, or there's abundance of competition in all these other markets, and energy is really not. It's changing. I want to say that for sure. Like there's more entrants coming in, people are innovating, but it's been quiet for a lot of years because I think people see it's scary when a regulated industry want to go innovate in that. And so my legal career was really a wonderful transition because it gave, I think, me a lot of confidence to know where the guardrails were, know how to not be afraid of regulation, to use regulation. I mean, I think the community solar business we talked about, where it's a gigawatt now of new projects on the grid, thanks in part to Arcadia, it's, you have to be comfortable making those laws, talking to policymakers. And so I think that transition in hindsight was a really sort of easier one to make. But then you learn startup is just a whole nother world of scaling from 0 to we now have 800 global employees.
Goodness.
That's just, you have to be curious and sort of initiative, or else you're not prepared for that type of growth.
I know you had previously said that having a child changed your outlook on your career and partially motivated you to get into clean energy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I sort of just talked about the transition from going from a commercial litigator to why did I want to sort of do a startup in the regulated field, we had our first child, and I think it was really a push. All sort of reflect on what we want to do, I think, after children, and really making an impact, right? I mean, I think going to a space where you can make an impact and be creative became more important for me professionally. And obviously, there's real things about climate change that I think we all want to stay optimistic. We all want to be part of the solution, but there's something deep about wanting to leave this place a little better for your kids once they're here. And so it's actually been, I think, a really great personal motivator to, want Arcadia to grow, because we have a business where if we grow, we think we, impact the world positively. And so it's a really good daily motivator to have that.
Yeah. I believe that when you started working at Arcadia, you were brought on as a director of business development, but despite the fact that you were a lawyer in prior years, as we've mentioned, you then, of course, grew to become the COO. What was the transition from director of BD to COO like? And how has your leadership changed?
So what is great about starting and founding a company is you get the opportunity to do everything. So I have the privilege of, I've managed every function at the business by this point. So I've, started our sales team, finance, people, operations, strategy, marketing. And so it's really been a wonderful journey the past 7 years of really taking on any problem we had. I mean, I think this is where, if you're going to a startup, you want to sort of make an impact, grow your career, retaining that sort of what's called the beginner's mind. It's a concept of everything can be interesting if you're curious, if you have initiative. And so I think really the path at Arcadia has been, how do we grow? How do we make the business work better? And that has meant building basically every function along the way, and also knowing when, there's a timing aspect. When do you invest in creating this function? How does it need to be for this stage of company versus, the next stage of company? Where we were at Series A is so much different than where we are today. And so the ability to adapt and change, I think, is super important for sort of any startup employee, anyone who's doing a fast growth. So I think that, the transitions have been remaining curious and willing to learn and willing to sort of ask questions quickly is really I think the skill sets you need to be successful in that type of fast change. My leadership style has changed entirely. I think I came in, there was, no one was here. And so everybody was an individual contributor. There was somebody else to give work to. And so you really start those early days with, you're doing everything, you're working, as much as you can, because you're all individual contributors trying to get this off. And over time, now I'm in a spot where I'm the leader of leaders, right? So I'm managing teams that underneath have hundreds of people. And so you have to really transition from hard work and, a generalist mentality to now I think I focus much more on clarity of communication, right? How do I make decisions clearly? How do I pass those decisions on to my direct report so that they can then inform their team?
Right.
And it's an odd thing where you actually need to do less to do more. I think in the beginning, you just do more, you just do. And now we're at a stage where it's much more important to be clear and decisive so other people can be empowered. And that's a much different job.
More like thoughtful about it, if you like.
Yeah, more like thoughtful, because what you do then influences what other people do. And so making sure that you're giving clear directions and motivating them. I think what's stayed the same through a lot of this is really holding the vision of Arcadia and really holding what's important to us culturally. And, those things have stayed the same of why we're doing this. I want to carry to work every day. And that stayed constant for 7 years. We want to democratize energy. We want to bring more energy choices to the consumer. And so staying sort of excited and motivated and passionate about that core mission hasn't changed. And telling, now we have responsibility because we have to tell 700 people around the globe why they should be excited about this mission. And so I probably spend more time now on the, culture and the sort of mission, why we're all doing this and making an impact, than I do on sort of the, individual contributor and work every day. So it's definitely a change.
There's something that you said that really stuck with me. So you said beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Because I get asked, so I work with a lot of startups, and I get asked for like that curiosity piece. Like they want someone mission driven, they want someone that has the intellectual curiosity. I get asked for that a lot. But that kind of term has never come up. And I think that I really like that. I'm going to kind of steal that because I think that's what it is. It's a beginner's mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm happy that that's a new concept, because I think it's a powerful one of like, because beginner's mind is a curious mind. It is it's a abundance mindset, joyful mindset, curiosity, all wrapped in. And like, I'm really excited to see this problem as an opportunity and to go tackle it and learn about it in a humble but curious way.
Right.
And I think that's where you get some magic that happens. Because also no one's done this before, right? It's like every time we start something new, we signed our first community solar deal in 2018. There was 0 megawatts on the grid, and now there's gigawatt. Like, you have to invent. And so, beginner's mind is, I think, a good place to put yourself when you're tackling those problems.
So I want to talk about a recent partnership that you've been doing with Urjanet. Tell us a bit about this partnership and how Arcadia is leveraging the data and digitalization to advance this fight against climate change.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we acquired a company called Urjanet in May of this year, so about 6 months ago. And really, Arcadia has historically had residential energy data. So, I mentioned previously that we started as a direct to consumer company with customers like yourself, and then, a gigawatt of community solar, which is basically towards also residential customers. But then Urjanet has always been in the commercial space. So they have access to all the commercial energy data. And so the thesis was that getting all the energy data together, both residential, commercial, global, and then different types, electricity, water, gas, is really going to give us the foundation to serve the needs of sort of all energy users around the world in a very powerful combination. So I think it allows us, because, the transition of energy is going to be global. It's going to be universal. It's not like residential folks are going to get different things than commercial folks. We think that the trends are going to sort of carry across both things. And so it really gives us such a good foundation to help our customers sort of drive innovation. And so if you have the data, you can do great things. Like, for example, as we get more EVs on the road, people are going to want to know, when should I charge my vehicle? How much is it going to cost to charge my vehicle? Can I switch to a different time of use rate to optimize my cost? that type of data then allows EV manufacturers to make really good consumer applications, to tell the customer that, to get the customer sort of seeing the value of that. We think there's a lot around there's going to be so much more solar and storage deployed, giving people, a calculator to how much they're going to save, what's their bill going to look like. Those are the tools that we need to create that Arcadia's data powers to really advance the transition to the clean energy economy.
Yeah. I think it's advancing to the clean energy economy for climate change, obviously, but also for cost, because I think one thing we really take for granted here is how cheap energy is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but I was in London for a decade, and they're in the middle of just an absolute catastrophe. And I don't use that word lightly. Like, people are spending hundreds of pounds on energy a month. And so I think it is about climate change, but it's also about making sure that we're on top of the costs, like we're more involved.
Yes,
in what it looks like,
in some ways, we see energy costs rising. I mean, obviously, everyone's been talking about the gallons of gasoline this summer. In your examples about Europe and the UK are spot on. And I actually think for the renewable energy industry, that's going to, increase the adoption faster. You're seeing Europe right now of where, great, I can have domestic energy production and control the cost, because once you build the wind farm or you build the solar field, the sun shines and the wind blows, you don't have to do anything else. And so it's in an odd way, I think could be exciting for the renewable industry, because that high price of power is going to enable some innovation. It's going to enable people to move faster. It's going to move up our timeline by decades. And that might be a good push for everybody. And then to your point, consumers start to care more. And I think we're going to see that they're going to want more solutions from their EV manufacturer to talk about solar and storage. I think, the consumer starts to take center stage in this transition in a way that the monopoly utility system has just had customers because they moved into the right street in their territory. The choice and the options have not been offered in energy in the way that every other, industry has to make a customer happy. It has to delight them, drive down costs. It has to show value. The energy industry has never been asked to do that. And I think that's really the revolution, to your point, that these higher bills are going to start to drive faster, as people saying, why am I paying this much? How can I do this cheaper? How can I do this better? And those types of light bulbs, I think, help drive other companies to innovate, to bring solutions in a way that the monopoly system just hasn't been forced to do. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, in the UK, you do have a choice. Like, I remember I used, a company where that company invested all the energy came from wind. And so that's the company that I used. But it's, I guess, what's also confusing about there is that even though you have all of this choice, it doesn't seem to, at this stage, be helping at all with cost.
No, I think, I think that the unfortunate, conflict and war in Ukraine is going to drive more domestic production. And I think there's only really a couple ways to do that, which is in the renewable sector. And so, it's hurting a lot of people. I mean, we're seeing, it's hurting a lot of people in Europe right now, for sure.
But that's why I was so excited when I learned about Arcadia, because when I moved back here, I was like, this is kind of frustrating, no choice. And so I felt like at least going with Arcadia, I had some sort of like choice in the matter.
Exactly.
So we've talked a lot about this gigawatt of solar. We've got to get some t-shirts for this. It seems like you're kind of excited about it.
We had a good party. We had a good party internally for that one.
So you're one of the largest managers of community solar in the US. Can you highlight the unique role that Arcadia plays in acquiring and aggregating the customers for developers, and also share some of the projects that you're most proud of?
So, we think community solar is the fastest growing sector of solar in the US right now. So it's an industry. It really started about 4 years ago, right? It's a very, 4 to 6 years ago, and it really started to ramp in the recent years. We're so excited about the Inflation Reduction Act, because there's actually a lot of good incentives and prompts to get more sort of this, smaller scale, smaller than utility scale, but still on distribution grid generation that we think so important for the energy transition. So, I used to tell friends that renewable energy is really a construction and finance field. So, you construct, you put poles in the ground and you finance them. And what community solar does is it adds on a layer of the customer. So this is really where Arcadia has been able to build a business and lean in and sort of help these projects get built is the community solar developer needs to have a residential consumer as an off-taker. So state programs are developed because they want to bring more third-party development into the solar industry. But the carrot, the incentive is, hey, we'll give you basically close to the retail rate for these projects if you can get a residential customer to sign up for it. And developers who are used to constructing and financing their projects don't have that innate sort of capability to sign up tens of thousands of customers en masse. So, Arcadia is cresting over 250,000 customers on their community solar product. That's just not the core skill set of someone who can sort of, get interconnection permits, find a land deal, build a project. Like, they're just different skills. And so Arcadia is bringing is the experience in digital marketing, customer acquisition, customer retention, those sort of best in class digital direct to consumer skills we're applying then to community solar. And so that's really where the partnership with the developer comes in. We don't own projects. We don't develop projects. We're not an asset owner. We go to the developer and say, hey, you need 1,000 off-takers for your community solar project. Here they are. And that's been a really great partnership because it's allowed us to really use what's our special sauce, direct to consumer, those types of skills, and give the developer what they need, which is those customer contracts to be the offtake. And so, and I think what's great is we've done it across all the community solar states. And so, because we have this data platform, we've been acquiring customers nationally for years before community solar started. We're able to play in all 14, all the community solar states to expand when new one opens. And I think that's been really powerful for developers because they want to, they have a portfolio where they might have projects in different states and they need different capabilities. There's different rules and programs to deliver. So that's really where we've brought, the value to the community solar market.
And you're also doing some wind though as well.
Yes, so we do our other part of the direct to consumer product because not every state has community solar. It's only 14 states now. We think it's actually going to expand quite a bit after the IRA. But we also do a direct to consumer wind rec program, which was where we started 7 years ago, and that's what you're using in Virginia. Community solar is coming to Virginia, so hopefully we'll be able to transition you to this also great product. But we also do for people who aren't in community solar states, a wind rec program, but our fastest growth has really been in community solar and then starting to, sell our data platform to energy innovators who want to make new, cool products.
It's interesting because I do a lot of recruitment for the Coalition for Community Solar Access.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're literally I'm placing people who are trying to get exactly, this pass, getting community solar past these different states. And so it's, I find it really gratifying, working on the government affairs piece, legislation piece, the policy piece. So
it's real megawatts. You can really track that there are, states are committing to, we think it's going to be a 3-4 gigawatt market a year. That's a significant part of our national sort of renewable plan, which is exciting.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, I wanted to ask you whether you have any advice for those looking to break into and succeed within the clean energy industry. Everyone that knows me would probably know that I'm asking that question as well with my little diversity lens on. So anything in particular, maybe for a general audience, but women perhaps?
Yeah, that's great. So what's been wonderful to watch, you've been in this industry a long time. I'm now starting to be in this industry,
11 years.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Right. So, and I feel that things have changed in the last 2 or 3 years in a wonderful way. I think, and maybe you feel that too, in the sort of a couple of years ago, you were sort of talking to the same type of background, the same type of person, the same sort of business opportunities. And really the past 2 or 3 years, for a number of reasons, there's been this burst of new types of people wanting to get into the clean energy space, new types of businesses being formed. We've moved way past this just being a hardware business, and there's so much innovation happening. And so the first thing that I think is just really amazing is that everybody can be able to join sort of the clean energy revolution. There is room for marketers, product designers, engineers, lawyers, policy people. Like, this is now a career choice that you can make for decades, that you can make coming from, a big tech firm, coming from tons of different places. And so I think that's the thing that gives me, first and foremost, just hope, optimism, and excitement. And then go into your, the diversity lens. That's also how you get diverse candidates, because now a general population can apply. You don't just have to have renewable experience, energy experience, finance experience, where, finance and construction are generally more male dominated fields. But now clean energy is opening it up to everybody in a way that I think should make us all commit to and feel optimistic that you can build a pipeline of candidates that is diverse as the general population. And so I think, like, that's optimism. You need to follow through on that. I think in all ways, you need to encourage people to apply. You need to, invite. I think one of the things that we see is, you want to invite people to apply to these roles sometimes, or encourage, your network to say, you can do clean energy. You should come be in this field. What I hear a lot, because, I take sort of cold outreach calls sometimes, and there's a lot of people who want to transition to clean energy. And their first question is, I don't have any of that experience. How do I do it? And so I think for everybody, it's encouraging, and see, I was a lawyer who had no experience in clean energy or business, but it's encouraging people to see their wedge and to say, okay, what skills do you bring? Clean energy needs all of them. So let's frame this as, how can you take your unique skills that maybe have never been applied to energy? You don't know what a kilowatt hour is, but how do you make the pitch that that's exactly what innovation needs? Because the problem is too big to have anybody sit on the sidelines. And so it's time to invite all skills and show them how they can apply that to this problem.
But I'm just curious, if you don't mind, how did you meet Karen? Like, how did you wind up in this situation?
Yeah. So this, I referenced the cold email. So I cold emailed him. I knew I started sort of investigating energy startups. The good thing about Washington, D.C. is there's not 100 of things going on. It doesn't, right?
There are 3.
There are 3. And so I found the 3, and I wrote a cold email, and I pitched myself as, like, this is what a lawyer can do in this industry. And so, I am the classic example of it's a career transition that I've, now we've grown into $1.5 billion business, using the skills I had as the wedge, which was law and regulatory and comfort with that, and then expanding it with a beginner's mind to, scale a business to 800 people and $1.5 billion valuation.
Because there's 2 things I just want to mention about Arcadia. I find it interesting that I always use you guys as an example that even pretty early on, you were open to taking people from outside the industry.
Oh, yeah.
And so whenever I'm doing a brief and I'm like, it has to be a marketing manager, and they have to have this, this, and this. I'm like, yes, but if you look at Arcadia, who's a company that you really like, that their marketing manager didn't come from that. Their HR person didn't come from that.
Oh, that's great to know.
But seriously, and I think that you also, I feel like, have put on JDs previously that even if you don't meet all of these criteria, please feel free to contact us. Because I think what you find with women is that they need to be 150% qualified for the job before they apply. So it's almost like giving them that permission, if you like, like, you may not be 150% qualified, but please still apply.
One of the things that I hope people take power from is that the future hasn't been written, right? Like, there's no sort of playbook for what it's going to be like in 5 or 10 years, and the problems we have to solve. And so, like, take confidence in that we're not going to do things like we have in the past. And so just taking what we have in the past and applying to the future is not what we need to do. We need innovation and risk and guts and smarts. And, like, those are the qualifications I think people need to get into this field, and a desire to make impact. And so, if that's what you have, then come and raise your hand and apply. I think that in so many ways, what's great about this industry is it's still parts of it are maturing. I mean, solar's been around for 25 years now. We all know that is a big industry, but there's so much innovation to come that we will miss wonderful opportunities if people think they have to be perfectly qualified or have done this before, because it hasn't been done.
Yeah. And I think also it's just about, one thing that I wanted to just ask you about quickly is, because you have been so open-minded about where people come from previously, I'm interested to know about the learning and development within the company. Because a lot of the objections that I hear when I say, let's bring a diverse candidate from somewhere else, my clients will be like, yeah, that sounds great, but we don't have anybody to train them. We need somebody that knows exactly what they're doing from day one because we're so busy, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So there must be some sort of infrastructure that you have within the company to bring these people on and train them up.
Yeah, we did. So first thing I'll say is, we are still learning and growing, and we change so fast that like we continuously have to invest in things. So, but one of the things we do for our onboarding is we do an Energy 101 course. Like everybody gets our VP of policy, Richard Caperton, does it. It's an Energy 101. It's a multi-step course, and we teach people about kilowatt hours and interconnection. And, we've made that part of our learning and development, and people love it, right? People who, a lot of people who we get are really I would call them climate curious, who are coming. So they're already starting to read articles and thinking about climate change. And so we really give them, every single person. So, we'll take this sort of Energy 101 course and, learn about the business. We also talk, we are real energy nerds here. So we talk about, these things that are all hands or lunch and learns. It's part of our vernacular and culture. And so people get up to speed, I think, just by the culture, so, we infuse it in our business for sure. But, look, I think we need to get the smartest engineers excited about energy. We need to get the smartest marketers excited about energy. I mean, I think that we need to retrofit the world. And to do that, you can't just do it, with the people who've been in this industry before. You have to activate a whole new generation of people. To get excited about this problem and want to solve this problem for us to actually solve it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
This was great. Thank you, Catherine. Lovely.